The city of Madrid sits under a pale sun, its streets lined with memories of a civil war that has only recently ended. The wounds are still fresh. The rubble still marks where buildings once stood. In a modest apartment in the Salamanca district, a man sits at a worn wooden desk, staring at a blank sheet of paper. His name is Juan Pujol García. He is 28 years old, thin, dark-eyed, intense, in a way that suggests he carries burdens most men never know. His hands tremble as he writes. Not from fear, but from the kind of desperation that comes from repeated rejection. 3 times he has walked into British intelligence offices, in Madrid, in Lisbon, offering his services against Nazi Germany. 3 times they have dismissed him. The British officers looked at him with polite skepticism. They asked him questions. They took notes, and then they showed him the door. They did not believe him. They did not understand that he was serious. They could not see that inside this Spanish man burned a conviction that Hitler must be stopped, and that he, Juan Pujol García, was willing to risk everything to make it happen. The Spanish Civil War had shown him what fascism meant. He had watched it consume his country. He had seen what it did to people, to families, to the very fabric of civilization. He had no love for the Spanish regime of Francisco Franco, and he had no love for Adolf Hitler and the Nazi machine that supported Franco. But the British did not recognize his sincerity. To them, he was just another suspicious character walking through their doors, claiming to have information, asking for money. On a cool day in April 1941, Juan makes a decision that will change the course of World War II. He does not make this decision lightly. He understands the risks. He understands that what he is about to do could result in his death. But he is out of options, and options are what drive desperate men to desperate acts. He walks to the German embassy in Madrid. The building stands on the Paseo de la Castellana, an impressive structure flying the Nazi flag. The swastika hangs above the entrance like a predator's shadow. His pulse quickens as he climbs the stone steps. Inside, the corridors are austere and efficient. German officers move with military precision. This is the headquarters of Nazi intelligence operations in Spain, the nerve center of the Abwehr's operations in the Iberian Peninsula. Juan approaches a German intelligence officer. His Spanish accent is thick, but his words are clear. He presents himself as a Spanish government official, a man of fanatical pro-Nazi persuasions, he tells them. He expresses his eagerness to do his fascist duty for the Reich. He offers his services. He volunteers to spy for Germany. He promises to build a network of agents in Britain and provide intelligence on Allied military operations. The German officers listen carefully. They ask questions, they take notes, and then, to Juan's amazement, they say yes. The Germans are desperate for intelligence networks inside Britain. They need eyes and ears in London. They need information about British military preparations, about troop movements, about weapons production, about the mood of the British people. They believe they have found someone who can provide this. They believe they have recruited a patriotic Spanish fascist who will work for the glory of the Third Reich. The Germans give him money, £3,000 sterling, a fortune in 1941. They give him invisible ink, code books, instructions. They give him the address where he should mail his reports. They give him a code name for communications, Arabelle. They tell him to go to London and establish himself. They tell him to begin recruiting agents. They tell him to send reports regularly. They tell him to be careful, and then they shake his hand and send him on his way. Juan Pujol leaves the embassy with money in his pocket and a mission in his mind, but he has no intention of going to London. He has no intention of working for Germany. He has executed the first phase of a plan that has been forming in his mind for months. He's going to deceive the Germans. He's going to take their money. He's going to feed them false information, and he's going to do it so skillfully, so convincingly, that they will never suspect they are being played. The fabrication begins. Lisbon, May 1941. Juan Pujol travels to Lisbon instead of London. Lisbon in 1941 is a neutral city. Portugal is officially neutral, though sympathetic to the Axis powers. It is a place where spies from all nations congregate, where information is traded like currency, where a man can disappear into the shadows if he knows how to move through them. Juan rents a small apartment. The walls are thin, the furniture is sparse, the light from the windows is pale and uncertain. He locks himself in this apartment with only a few possessions: a copy of the Blue Guide to England, some borrowed reference books from the public library, several old magazines and newspapers. He has no agents, he has no network, he has no actual intelligence from Britain, but he has something far more dangerous: imagination. He has the ability to construct an entirely fictional world and make it seem real. Night after night, for weeks on end, Juan sits at a table and writes reports. His handwriting is careful and precise. He describes military exercises on Lake Windermere that never happened. He reports on convoys leaving the southwest coast that exist only in his mind. He invents agents, fictional people who become more real to him with each passing day. A Swiss businessman named Gerbers, operating out of Liverpool, sending reports about shipping movements. A Venezuelan student named Carvalho in Glasgow, observing Scottish shipyards and military installations. A Portuguese man named Dagobert in Cardiff, Wales, tracking naval activity in the Bristol Channel. A Polish RAF pilot whose name changes in different reports. A man who moves between airfields and occasionally smuggles letters across borders. Each of these fictional agents has a detailed backstory. Juan knows their family situations. He knows their political beliefs. He knows their motivations for working as spies. He knows what they drink at bars in the evenings. He knows their habits and quirks. This level of detail makes them feel real. This is the key to the deception. Not to invent something completely fantastic, but to invent something plausible, something that fits into the pattern of military reality, something that a trained intelligence officer might actually encounter. The reports flow out of the apartment like a river. Juan uses the invisible ink the Germans provided. He carefully encodes the messages. He places them in envelopes addressed to his German handlers. He mails them to the address they gave him. In Berlin and Hamburg, German intelligence officers receive these letters. They read them with growing excitement. Here is a Spanish patriot sending detailed intelligence from Britain. Here is a man who has managed to establish a network of agents. Here is exactly the kind of intelligence the Abwehr has been desperate to obtain. The Germans are impressed. They believe they have found a treasure. They begin sending Juan money, $500 per month, a substantial sum in 1941. They send him instructions. They send him new code books. They promote him within their organizational structure. They tell him to expand his network. They tell him to recruit more agents. They tell him to send more reports. They tell him that his work is vital to the German war effort. But then something goes wrong. In one of his reports describing events in Glasgow, Juan mentions that he saw men who would do anything for a litre of wine. Litre. The metric system. A small detail, but a red flag. A Spanish man living in Britain would not use the metric system to measure wine. He would say a bottle or a glass. He would use English measurements. This small error suggests that the report was written by someone who has not actually been to Britain, who does not understand British culture and British language habits, who is fabricating information from a distance. British intelligence, which has broken the German Enigma code and is reading German communications, notices this error. They read the reports. They analyze them. They realize that the German intelligence service is being fed false information. But how? Who is doing this? And more importantly, why? Is this a British operation? Is the British government deliberately feeding false information to the Germans through a German agent? If so, it is a brilliant strategy, but it is not a British operation. The British have no idea who Arabelle is or where the false reports are coming from. A manhunt begins. British counterintelligence launches an investigation. They analyze the reports more carefully. They look for clues. They try to identify who is sending this false information. They work backward from the content, trying to determine what kind of person would have the knowledge and capability to fabricate such detailed military reports. The search becomes urgent. This unknown spy, whoever he is deliberately deceiving the Germans, and British intelligence needs to understand why. In April 1942, more than a year after Juan first walked into the German embassy in Madrid, British intelligence locates him. They find him in Lisbon. They know who he is. They know what he has been doing. They know about his fabricated reports. And then, instead of arresting him, they make him an offer. The recruitment. Lisbon. April 1942. The meeting takes place in a safe house in Lisbon. Juan Pujol sits across from British intelligence officers. They are calm, professional, measured in their speech. They know everything about him. They know about his reports to the Germans. They know about his fictional agents. They know about the £3,000 he received from the Abwehr. They know about every detail of his operation, but instead of threatening him, they appeal to him. They tell him that what he is doing, deliberately deceiving the Germans, suggests that his anti-Nazi feelings are genuine. They tell him that they understand he walked into British intelligence offices multiple times and was rejected. They apologize for that rejection. They acknowledge that they made a mistake. They tell him that they now understand his value. They tell him that they want to work with him, not against him. Juan listens. For months, he has been operating in isolation, fabricating reports, sending false information into the void, not knowing if anyone was reading his messages, not knowing if his operation was actually having any impact. Now, British intelligence is telling him that they have been reading his reports. They have been watching his operation. They want to recruit him officially. The terms are clear. Juan will continue sending reports to the Germans, but now he will do so under British control. British intelligence will provide him with carefully selected, strategically released information. Some of it will be true, some of it will be deliberately false, designed to mislead the Germans. Some of it will be ambiguous, open to interpretation. All of it will be calculated to serve British strategic interests. Juan Pujol accepts the offer. It is the only rational decision he can make. If he refuses, British intelligence could arrest him. He could spend the war in a British prison. But if he accepts, he becomes an official British agent. He becomes part of a larger operation. He becomes part of the war effort against Nazi Germany, which has been his goal all along. British intelligence moves Juan Pujol to London. They assign him a new code name, GARBO. This name references the famous actress Greta Garbo, but it also references the Spanish word garbo, which means elegance or style. It is a name that suggests Juan's particular skill, the elegant way he weaves falsehoods into something that appears to be truth. MI5, the British Security Service, establishes an office where Garbo works under supervision. They provide him with radio transmitters and operators. They provide him with code books and cipher machines. They provide him with an apartment in London where he can live safely. They provide him with money for his operations. They assign him a case officer, a British intelligence officer named Thomas Harris, a man fluent in Spanish, a man who understands the nuances of deception and the psychology of espionage. Thomas Harris becomes Garbo's handler, his mentor, his connection to the British war machine. Harris is a remarkable man, not a typical military officer, but an art historian, a scholar, a man who has lived in Spain and understands Spanish culture deeply. Harris recognizes immediately that Garbo is not an ordinary spy. Garbo is an artist of deception. He approaches false information the way a novelist approaches fiction, with attention to character development, to narrative consistency, to the small details that make something feel real. Harris and Garbo begin working together to develop Garbo's network of fictional agents. They expand it. They add new characters. They give these fictional agents families. They give them personal problems. They give them romantic entanglements. They give them the kinds of mundane details that make fictional people seem real. One agent becomes involved with a woman in Portsmouth. Another agent gets drunk one evening and reveals too much at a bar. Another agent has financial problems and is thinking about leaving the spy business. These are the kinds of details that make a network of spies seem authentic. But now, for the first time, Garbo has access to genuine intelligence. British intelligence has broken the German Enigma code. They know what the Germans are planning. They know what information the Germans are looking for. They know what conclusions the Germans are drawing. GARBO can now anchor his fabrications in truth. He can take a real military fact and surround it with false information. He can confirm German suspicions while simultaneously reinforcing their existing beliefs about British military capabilities and intentions. The deception becomes far more sophisticated. The false reports are now built on a foundation of genuine intelligence. This makes them nearly impossible for the Germans to detect as false. This makes them believable in a way that pure fiction could never be. The Phantom Army, London, 1943-1944. In May 1943, at a meeting in Casablanca between President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Prime Minister Winston Churchill, a strategic decision is made. The Allies will invade occupied Europe in 1944. This is not a question anymore. The invasion will happen. The only questions are where and when and how many men will be needed and whether the invasion can succeed. The answer to that last question terrifies every Allied military planner. Can the invasion succeed? Adolf Hitler has spent the last 3 years fortifying the French coastline with concrete and steel. German engineers have built a defensive line stretching for hundreds of kilometers, fortifications that the Nazis call the Atlantic Wall. This line is studded with guns, observation posts, minefields, tank obstacles, barbed wire. Behind this wall are German troops, hundreds of thousands of them, positioned at key points along the coast, waiting for the invasion that they know is coming. The question that keeps Eisenhower and his generals awake at night is whether the Allies can land enough troops in France to overcome German defenses and establish a permanent beachhead. The mathematics are grim. The Germans have time to move reinforcements to wherever the Allies land. The Germans have Panzer divisions, elite tank units, that can be thrown into battle to counterattack and push the Allies back into the sea. The Allies will have only a narrow window of time to land enough men and equipment to create a defensible position before German reinforcements arrive. And then someone proposes an idea so audacious, so risky, that at first it seems impossible. What if the Allies could convince the Germans that the invasion is coming somewhere else? What if they could make the Germans believe that the main landing will be at Pas-de-Calais, far to the north of Normandy? What if they could do this so convincingly that Hitler would hold back his reserves and reinforcements? Operation Fortitude is officially established. It is placed under the control of the London Controlling Section, a secret organization within the British military. The planners include military strategists, intelligence officers, psychologists, experts in deception and military deception theory. They begin to design the most elaborate deception operation in military history. The plan unfolds in layers. First, they create a phantom army, the first United States Army group, FUSAG. On paper, it consists of 150,000 men under the command of General George S. Patton, Jr., one of the commanders most feared by the German High Command. In reality, FUSAG does not exist. It is a ghost. But in the forests of Kent and Essex, south and east of London, The Allies begin construction. They build fake tanks, inflatable rubber tanks that look real from the air. They construct fake airfields, complete with dummy aircraft made of wood and canvas. They build fake camps with fake headquarters buildings. They construct fake supply depots with stacks of empty boxes made to look like ammunition and food supplies. They string telephone wires between fake installations. They use loudspeakers to broadcast the sounds of military activity, trucks moving, soldiers marching, equipment being moved. They organize mock exercises where trucks drive up and down the same roads repeatedly, creating the appearance of massive traffic. They arrange for frequent radio transmissions from the Phantom Army, using radio operators to simulate military communications. They organize fake supply deliveries to the Kent and Essex area. They arrange for loose talk in pubs and bars about the massive invasion force being assembled in southeast England. They plant rumors. They spread stories. They create the appearance of an army that does not exist. Then they ensure that the Germans see it. Luftwaffe reconnaissance aircraft photograph the ghost army. The photographs show fake tanks, fake airfields, fake camps. German intelligence receives reports from spies in Britain, reports about the massive invasion force being assembled. German military attachés in neutral countries report what they are hearing. German intercepted radio transmissions confirm the presence of large-scale military activity in southeast England. Everything points to one inescapable conclusion. A massive invasion force is preparing to cross the English Channel at Pas-de-Calais in mid-July 1944. The location makes perfect strategic sense. It is the shortest crossing from England to occupied Europe. It is the most direct route to the German heartland. Every German general understands that this is where the main invasion will come. The messages, January to May 1944. In January 1944, the German High Command contacts GARBO. They are anxious. They can sense that something is happening. The Allies are clearly preparing for something major. German reconnaissance aircraft are seeing increased activity in British ports. German spies are reporting increased military activity. Radio operators are detecting a flurry of military communications. The Germans want to know what is happening. When will the invasion come? Where will it land? How many men are involved? They need answers. They need GARBO. At Bletchley Park, where British codebreakers have penetrated the German Enigma cipher, British intelligence officers read the German demand for information. They know exactly what the Germans want to hear. They know what conclusions the Germans are already drawing. They know what beliefs the Germans hold. Now they will use GARBO to confirm and reinforce those beliefs. GARBO's radio transmitter crackles to life dozens of times daily, 4 transmissions per day. "500 messages between January and June 1944, each one carefully crafted, each one designed to push the Germans deeper into deception. GARBO reports that FUSAG is receiving new commanders. He provides their names, some real American officers, some invented. He describes training exercises on the coast. He reports on the arrival of specialized landing craft. He mentions the distribution of medical supplies, particularly anti-nausea medication kits being distributed to troops at Southampton, equipment being prepared for soldiers who will spend many hours on boats crossing the Channel. To the Germans, these mundane details are proof. This is not propaganda. This is not invented information. This is the testimony of an agent on the ground, reporting what he sees with his own eyes. This is a man risking his life to send accurate intelligence. GARBO describes the organization of FUSAG in detail. He reports that it consists of multiple army corps. He names the commanders of these corps. He describes their backgrounds and personalities. He notes the types of divisions assigned to each corps. He reports on logistics, the supplies being stockpiled, the trucks being requisitioned, the ships being prepared for transport. He mentions specific locations: Dover, Folkestone, Portsmouth, Southampton. He provides information about the roads being congested with military traffic. He describes conversations he has overheard from soldiers who mention that they are preparing for a crossing to France. But GARBO understands something crucial. Credibility is built on imperfection. If he only reports information that confirms German expectations, they will become suspicious. If his intelligence never admits to uncertainty, they will doubt him. If everything he reports is good news for the Germans, they will wonder if he is too good to be true. So GARBO balances his reports. He mentions problems. He reports on friction between American and British commanders. He describes supply shortages. He includes details that make him seem like a real spy working under difficult conditions, a man who sees some things clearly but misses other things, a man who has access to some information but not all of it. He even makes occasional errors, small ones, mistakes that a real agent might make, that he then corrects in later reports. This makes him seem more human. This makes him seem more real. This makes him seem more believable. GARBO reports on the increasing security around military installations. He mentions that he is being more careful about his movements because British counterintelligence has tightened security. He suggests that his network of agents is under increased pressure. He implies that some of his agents are becoming nervous about the risks they are taking. He mentions that one agent is thinking about stopping his spy work. All of these details are designed to make his reports seem like they are coming from a real, vulnerable human being, not from a perfect machine designed to feed the Germans exactly what they want to hear. German intelligence is captivated. They read each of GARBO's reports with growing excitement. Here is confirmation of what they already believe. Here is evidence that FUSAG is preparing to invade at Pas-de-Calais. Here is proof that the Allies are concentrating their forces in southeast England. Here is the testimony of a trusted agent that the Germans will land in Normandy first, but that this landing is merely a diversion. The main invasion, the decisive invasion, will come at Pas-de-Calais. The Germans reward GARBO for his excellent work. They promote him within their intelligence hierarchy. They give him a larger budget. They increase his pay. They tell him that his work is essential to the German war effort. They tell him that he is one of the most valuable agents they have operating anywhere in the world. They tell him that his information is being read by the highest levels of German military command, including Adolf Hitler himself. By May 1944, GARBO has become the most trusted spy in the entire German intelligence apparatus. The Abwehr considers his reports indispensable. Every major decision made by German commanders in occupied France is informed by information that GARBO has provided. The Germans have built their entire understanding of Allied invasion plans on the foundation of GARBO's reports. And those reports are lies. Carefully constructed lies, but lies nonetheless. The night before, everything changes. June 5–6, 1944. The weather over the English Channel is uncertain. The forecast shows that there is a window of opportunity, perhaps 48 hours of acceptable conditions, before the weather deteriorates again. If the Allies do not invade in this window, they will have to wait for the next favorable window, which might be weeks away. But every day they wait is a day the Germans have to prepare. Every day they wait is a day Hitler's generals have to dig in deeper, to prepare stronger defenses, to position more troops. On June 5, 1944, in his headquarters at Southwick House near Portsmouth, General Dwight D. Eisenhower makes the most important military decision of his life. He gives the order to proceed. Operation Overlord, the invasion of Normandy, will begin. In a few hours, thousands of ships will begin moving toward the French coast. Hundreds of thousands of men will board landing craft. Thousands of planes will take off carrying paratroopers. But Eisenhower understands something that the average soldier does not understand. The deception cannot survive contact with reality. Once the Germans see the enormous scale of the invasion in Normandy, once they see thousands of planes overhead and thousands of ships off the Normandy coast, they will know the invasion is happening. They will know it is happening in Normandy, not at Pas-de-Calais. The deception will be exposed. The German High Command will order reserves to move south. The panzers will begin rolling toward Normandy. The battle will become even more desperate, even more costly in lives. But what if GARBO tells them first? What if, in the hours before the invasion becomes visible to the Germans through their own reconnaissance, GARBO sends a message confirming that the invasion is indeed underway in Normandy, but frames it as merely a diversion? The decision is made. Eisenhower's commanders will use GARBO one final time to reinforce the deception at the most critical moment. At midnight on June 5–6, 1944, GARBO receives his most important orders. He is to send an urgent message to the Abwehr. The message will confirm what the Germans are already beginning to learn from their own reconnaissance sources. An invasion is beginning in Normandy. But the message will also plant a seed of crucial doubt. It will suggest that this invasion is not the main attack. It will suggest that the main invasion, the real invasion, is still coming at Pas-de-Calais. GARBO's hands move across the telegraph key. His fingers tap out the message in Morse code. Each dot and dash carries the weight of history. The signal travels across Europe through German radio receivers. German cryptographers begin to decode it. The message is encrypted again, sent through secure channels, decrypted again, sent to commanders. Time passes. Time moves with excruciating slowness. By the time GARBO's message reaches Hitler's headquarters, the invasion has already begun. The first waves of American and British troops are already ashore in Normandy. Thousands of men are wading through the surf. Thousands of men are dying in the sand. It is too late for the message to help the Germans defend Normandy, but it is not too late for the message to influence Hitler's most critical strategic decisions. The deception holds. June 6th through July 1944, June 6th, 1944. Dawn breaks over Normandy. The sky is filled with the sound of C-47 transport planes and B-17 bombers. The water is churned by the bows of thousands of ships and landing craft. Machine gun fire cuts through the air. The sound is apocalyptic. Men die in the sand. The water turns red. The invasion is happening. And somewhere in Hamburg, Germany, German cryptographers are still decoding GARBO's message from the night before. The message says that the Normandy invasion is underway. It says that forces are landing on the beaches. It says that General Omar Bradley is directing the assault. But then it says something else, something that will change the entire course of the war. The message says that this is diversionary in character. The message says that the main invasion force has not yet committed to battle. The message points out that General Patton is not in Normandy. FUSAG, the enormous 150,000-man army group, has not participated in the invasion. Where is Patton? Where is FUSAG? They must be held back for the main assault, the assault that is still coming at Pas-de-Calais. This message is marked urgent. It is rushed directly to Hitler's headquarters. The Führer reads it, he considers it, and he makes a decision that will reverberate through history. He orders 2 Panzer divisions, elite armored units equipped with the most advanced tanks in the world, to remain at Pas-de-Calais. He wants them there to defend against the main invasion that is still coming. He believes GARBO. He trusts GARBO's assessment. He trusts an agent whom he has never met, whom he does not know personally, but whose intelligence reports have never steered him wrong. For Rommel, the German field marshal commanding forces in France, this decision is catastrophic. Rommel is desperate. He can feel the weight of American and British soldiers pressing against his lines. He can see with his own eyes that an enormous invasion force has landed in Normandy. He can see the beaches filled with men and equipment. He can see the endless stream of soldiers coming ashore. He can see the supplies being unloaded. He needs reinforcements. He needs armor. He desperately needs those Panzer divisions. Rommel sends urgent requests to Hitler for reinforcements. He tells Hitler that the situation in Normandy is desperate. He tells Hitler that he needs tanks. He tells Hitler that he needs men. He tells Hitler that if the Germans do not reinforce Normandy immediately, the Allies will break through and push inland. But Hitler refuses. Hitler tells Rommel to hold the line. Hitler tells him that the main invasion is still coming at Pas-de-Calais. Hitler tells him that GARBO has confirmed this. For 7 weeks, the panzers do not move. For 7 weeks, The German High Command holds back reinforcements. For 7 weeks, the most powerful weapon in the German arsenal remains hundreds of kilometers away from where it is needed most. And during those 7 weeks, the Allies establish their foothold. They bring more men ashore. They bring more supplies, food, ammunition, medical supplies, gasoline, tanks, artillery. They secure more ground. They push inland. They link up their beachhead with the paratroopers who landed behind enemy lines. What might have been a narrow beachhead, a few kilometers of sand and shattered fortifications, becomes a permanent lodgment. What might have been a costly breakthrough, a desperate fight measured in feet rather than miles, becomes a successful invasion. The Germans see the scale of the invasion. They see that they have been deceived, but by then it is too late. By then the Allies have landed more than 300,000 men in Normandy. By then the Germans realize that GARBO's reports were false, but they also realize that they cannot recover from this deception. The war in Western Europe has been decided in the first 48 hours after D-Day, and the decision has been made by a Spanish spy who fabricated intelligence with extraordinary skill and precision. The Iron Cross, July 29th, 1944. June passes. July arrives. The fighting in Normandy continues. The Allies push inland. They capture towns. They push toward Saint-Lô. They break through the German lines. They begin to liberate France. The Panzers eventually begin to move toward Normandy, but by then it is too late. The Germans commit their armor piecemeal, division by division, in desperate counterattacks that are repelled by overwhelmingly superior Allied firepower. The German tanks are destroyed. The German infantry is cut down. The German positions are breached. The war begins to turn decisively against Germany. Throughout June and July, GARBO continues sending reports to the Germans. He continues to send messages suggesting that Pas-de-Calais is the location where the main invasion will come. He continues to report that Fusag is being held back in southeast England. He continues to suggest that the Normandy landing is a diversion. The Germans, desperate to believe that this is true, accept his reports. They continue to hold panzer divisions at Pas-de-Calais, waiting for an invasion that will never come. By late July 1944, more than 3 weeks after D-Day, German intelligence makes a decision. They have been receiving intelligence from an agent named Arabelle, known to them now as Agent GARBO, for 3 years. This agent has provided them with detailed information about British military operations. This agent has warned them about invasion preparations. This agent has helped them understand Allied intentions and capabilities. This agent has served the Third Reich with distinction and dedication. On July 29, 1944, German intelligence awards Juan Pujol García the Iron Cross First Class. This is an extraordinarily rare honor. The Iron Cross First Class is not normally given to spies or intelligence operatives. It is the highest medal that can be awarded to a German soldier. It is normally awarded only to frontline fighting men who have demonstrated exceptional bravery in combat. It is rarely given to anyone who is not involved in direct combat. But GARBO is not a normal operative. GARBO is, in the estimation of German intelligence, the greatest spy Germany has ever had. The Germans present him with the medal in absentia. They cannot award it to him in person because he is still operating in Britain. But they send the medal through intermediaries. They recognize his contributions. They honor him for his service. They tell him that his work has been vital to the German war effort. They tell him that his intelligence reports have been read by Adolf Hitler himself. They tell him that he has the gratitude of the entire German military establishment. What the Germans do not know is that they are awarding a medal to a man who has just defeated them. They are honoring the architect of their own strategic failure. They are celebrating the intelligence work that has contributed to their most catastrophic military disaster. Juan Pujol García, the Spanish spy who fabricated his entire network, who reported false information with meticulous detail, who convinced Hitler that the greatest military operation in history was a diversion, this man receives the Iron Cross for his service to Germany. And he receives it for lies, he receives it for deception. The measure of success: the Allies established their beachhead in Normandy on D-Day with approximately 133,000 troops. By the end of the first day, they had secured 50 kilometers of the Normandy coast. By the end of the first week, they had landed more than 300,000 men. By the end of the first month, they had brought more than 1 million soldiers across the English Channel. The casualty rate was lower than many military planners had feared. The breakthrough was faster than many had expected. The liberation of Western Europe had begun. Much of this success was due to Operation Fortitude. The German reserves that might have been thrown against the beachhead in the first critical days remained far to the north, waiting for an invasion that would never come. The Panzers that might have counterattacked with devastating effect remained stationary. The reinforcements that might have overwhelmed the thin Allied beachhead never arrived until it was too late to matter. Military historians have argued endlessly about the exact impact of Operation Fortitude on the outcome of D-Day. Some historians estimate that the deception saved tens of thousands of Allied lives. Others estimate the number at more than 100,000. These are lives that would have been lost if the Germans had been able to concentrate their forces against Normandy in the first critical days of the invasion. These are lives that were saved by GARBO's deceptions. These are lives that were saved by a Spanish spy who fabricated intelligence with the skill of a master novelist. The success of Operation Fortitude cannot be measured in lives saved alone. It can be measured in the acceleration of the liberation of Europe. If the Germans had thrown their full weight against Normandy in the first days, if they had launched powerful counterattacks with concentrated armor and infantry, the Allies might have been pushed back into the sea. They might have been forced to withdraw and regroup. They might have had to attempt another invasion later in the summer, costing them weeks or months. Instead, because of Operation Fortitude, because of GARBO, the Allies maintained their foothold. They expanded their beachhead. They pushed inland. They broke out of Normandy. They liberated France. They began the final advance toward Berlin. The end of the deception. After D-Day, GARBO continued sending reports to the Germans for weeks. He continued to maintain his network of fictional agents. He continued to provide information, some true, some false, some deliberately ambiguous. But the German intelligence service was being decimated. As the Allies advanced and the Germans retreated, German intelligence operations became increasingly chaotic. The Abwehr was reorganized. German officials were executed or imprisoned for various reasons. By the fall of 1944, the entire structure of German military intelligence was in collapse. Eventually, GARBO's role in the deception became less important. The invasion had succeeded. The Germans had been defeated in Normandy. The Allies were advancing. The war was being decided by military force, by armor and artillery and infantry, not by intelligence deception anymore. After the war ended in 1945, Juan Pujol García disappeared from public view. For decades, his role in the deception remained classified. British intelligence kept the secrets of Operation Fortitude compartmentalized and protected. The British did not reveal GARBO's identity until 1985, 40 years after the end of the war. Even then, many people did not know who GARBO was. Many people did not understand the crucial role he had played in the most important military operation of the Second World War. Juan Pujol lived quietly after the war. He went into hiding for a time, afraid that German agents might seek revenge against him. Eventually, he settled in Venezuela, where he spent his final decades in relative obscurity. He died in 1988 at the age of 76. He was buried in Venezuela, far from the theaters of war where his deceptions had shaped history. But the German High Command eventually learned the truth. After the war, when German intelligence officers were debriefed by Allied interrogators, they learned that their most trusted spy was a British agent. They learned that every message he had sent them was designed to deceive them. They learned that the intelligence they had trusted with their lives, the information they had used to make strategic decisions, had all been lies. Some of them could not believe it. Some of them became angry. Some of them understood with a kind of grudging respect that they had been defeated not by military superiority, but by a superior strategy of deception. The legacy, the lessons of Operation Fortitude became required reading at military academies around the world. The techniques of strategic deception that GARBO demonstrated became part of military doctrine. The case of Agent GARBO became a textbook example of how psychological warfare and information operations could be more powerful than conventional military force. In 2002, 54 years after the end of World War II, the British government recognized GARBO's contributions by awarding him an official honor. By then, GARBO was an old man living in Venezuela. He did not travel to Britain to receive the honor in person, but the recognition was there, official recognition that he had played a crucial role in the defeat of Nazi Germany. Military strategists and intelligence professionals around the world recognized what GARBO had done. He had demonstrated that a single individual, with intelligence, creativity, and courage, could influence the outcome of the greatest military conflict in human history. He had shown that information warfare, the war of ideas, perceptions, and beliefs, was sometimes more powerful than conventional warfare itself. He had shown that deception, applied with skill and precision, could save lives and alter the course of history. Operation Fortitude remains one of the most studied deception operations in military history. It is taught at military academies and intelligence schools. It is analyzed in books, documentaries, and academic papers. Military strategists still debate its exact impact on the outcome of D-Day and the invasion of Normandy, but there is no debate about its significance. Operation Fortitude, built largely on the fabrications of Juan Pujol García, changed the course of World War II. This is the story of how a single man, through lies told with extraordinary precision, helped save millions of lives. This is the story of how a Spanish spy, a man who was rejected by British intelligence, eventually became one of the most valued agents in the entire Allied intelligence apparatus. This is the story of how deception, applied with skill and courage, can be more powerful than force. This is the story of Operation Fortitude, the greatest hoax of World War II, and the spy who made it possible. This is the story of Agent GARBO,